Welcome back to Leading with Integrity and to our third episode of the week and part 2 of the conversation that I'm having with Ciaran and Rachel McKenna of Woodhazel Consulting. Hopefully you've already heard part 1. If not, go and listen to that first, because otherwise we're going to jump right into the middle of a conversation and it won't make much sense. And if you have already heard part 1, there's really no need for me to repeat the intro, but just in case, to refresh your memory, I've been chatting with Ciaran and Rachel McKenna of Woodhazel Consulting. We've been talking about their area of expertise, marketing, sales, building those long-term relationships, and my area of expertise, leadership, and then the various crossovers and interactions between these things. And there are, as ever, some surprising differences, but also maybe some not so surprising similarities too. So, without further ado, let's jump back in where we left off yesterday.
Welcome to the Leading with Integrity podcast. Leadership talk for the modern manager. With your host, David Hatch.
Even though some of our political leaders maybe aren't catching up, but I think business, it makes sense, doesn't it?
It does. I think, you mentioned earlier, Rachel, about kind of the perception of what leadership is, and it was always about the shouty man usually. And I think it's part of that same thing, isn't it? And part of that same mythos, if you like, was that it'd be the shouty, the man, the suit and tie, always have all the answers. And I think that particularly speaks to this exact thing, is you just like, well, and I think, whatever you think of the politicians and the individuals, and I've mentioned a name already and I shouldn't have, but they're following this misconception of what leadership is about. And I think in cases like that, especially where no one reasonably expects you to be the expert or to even understand what the experts are telling you, the expectation there is that leaders will trust those experts because they do know, they do understand it. They're giving you that advice because they know and they understand it. So trust that advice. And if you don't trust them, then find a different expert. But don't just make your own decision and ignore everyone.
Yeah.
Just because you think that's what leadership is.
Yeah.
And yes, the COVID is the extreme example, but I think you're right. I think so many business leaders are waking up to that as well now.
And I think their teams are almost coming, and they'll vote with their feet because, as I say, that's where they don't want to put up with that anymore. Or and there is a little bit of a fight back. People are being asked to move back to go back into the businesses, when they were told they could work from home. So it's interesting times. And part of what we say to people is, well, maybe that's where we can help them with the discussion to be able to find a compromise, because that's ultimately what leadership is, as well as providing choice. It is finding compromise. And
I think also it's funny. It's kind of overlaps even in a sales environment as well. Sometimes when things go wrong, that's when when a business either steps up to resolve it, and people really then move into really trusting and building that long-term relationship. It's very easy when things are going smoothly. It's actually when things get tough, that's when you really get the measure of people and measure of a business, and whether you actually want to be, because ideally you want to always have that partnership relationship. And I suppose COVID was the extreme scenario for us all recently, because it was a shocking for the world, and it was the leaders that stood up, they shone, and those who didn't kind of shone as well. And similarly in business, I think when things go wrong, if it's how you actually deal with them is what people remember. People forgive mistakes, but it's recognizing when things go wrong and either getting resolved quickly, and also holding your hand up sometimes and going, we made mistakes. We're human. That's fine.
Some of the best customers you'll get will actually be where you got it wrong first time. It's how you handled the issue. And they go, well, actually, I admired the fact that Rachel rang me and had the guts to say, this is what happened. Ciaran shouldn't have promised that. And it's good. And you bring it through and it's there. But actually that's an opportunity then, and they go, well, actually not only did they do that, but they sorted it out, and they're out there selling you. because they're saying, yeah, I gave them the order, and yet they did get it wrong, but actually they came back to me and they sorted it out, and we're more than happy now. And you hear so many examples of that, in particular in retail and stuff.
Because things do go wrong. That's the world we live in. Everything is so fast now. That's the thing. We're all having to run at 100 miles an hour. So, and we're all working in this agile environment. So obviously we're cutting out steps along the way where we can. So obviously sometimes things do fall by but as long as you can jump back and resolve them quickly and own up to them and kind of move forward, then I don't see that, I think most people accept that now.
Yeah, I think it's part of what you were saying earlier about, seeing people and treating people as the humans they are. Well, part of that has to be that humans make mistakes. So you can't just throw your toys out the pram or baby out with the bathwater. Other cliches also available.
But every time. As well, that is part of it as well. And so that's why we say sometimes it is about finding so sometimes when people say, oh, I don't like sales, or that's too salesy, and I go, so what do you like? And the conversation can start that way and say, so what? Well, I love helping people, and I love providing the best service possible. And you go, so what's selling then? And they go, well, and that's the conversation, isn't it? Because you're doing it, and actually it's just finding who they are, what they are, and then building out from it, isn't it?
And I think we've had that conversation in the past, Ciaran, you and I actually.
We have.
I think I've refined my statement now. I don't like being sold to under high pressure. That's what I meant originally when I said, and I think that's probably true for most people when they say I don't like sales. That's what they really mean. It's like I don't like someone being really pushy and trying to sell something to me. But anyway,
we cover all of that off, kind of where people have to go through different stages to actually before they make a decision to buy. And what a salesy person doing is trying to move them too quickly before they've actually had time to, as you say, think about it. Some people just need that time to think and kind of sort of work way up whether I really want this, whether it's right for me now.
Definitely, but also sometimes they don't want or need being sold, and maybe just don't jump straight to that for last conversation.
And so we were having this very conversation because we were doing a little bit of work about proactive selling, and what people have to be very wary of it is exactly that. When you're trying to be proactive, remember you're jumping a couple of steps because you're speaking to people and they may not necessarily
be ready. So they might have even thought about it, and suddenly you're asking them to buy it, and you're kind of going, well,
Whereas when it's reactive, they've come to you, and it's how you act and react. But proactive, this thing of going with fear and going with, oh, have I got a deal for you, or you're missing out. The risk with that is, well, they go, well, yeah. So
it's the same thing. I'm just thinking in leadership with somebody. When they're new to leadership, they suddenly think, I have to,
I have to be strong.
I have to be strong. I have to have my purpose and my, how I'm going to lead this team. Like, you haven't even met the team. You know what I mean? It's the same. It's like when you start a new job, we kind of go in there thinking, oh gosh, I need to be able to, kind of deliver everything they ask, but actually you haven't even learned what you're going into really. So, and then the same with the conversation, or when people say, oh, I can't sell, and you're going, well, you need to find out when you meet somebody, A, are they interested in what you've got? And B, are you interested in are they an opportunity for you? Because it's not just you selling to them, they're selling in some ways to you. It's kind of reverse as well. So it's got to be a two-way conversation or a two-way kind of relationship.
Yeah. And another interesting tangent to that, I think the same applies when you're hiring or employing or going for a job. And again, I think there's a shift we've seen in the last decade or so where it used to be very one-sided, that relationship, and now I think it's a bit more reciprocal, isn't it? Like now we're in a place where a lot of businesses are selling themselves to prospective employees as much as the other way around.
Well, I tell you what's very
interesting parallel.
Yeah,
and you've opened up another area as well, which comes if you are going to hire someone into your team, and it is a team, and you've decided and you're moving forward with purpose. Just remember, every time you have a recruitment or you have someone who leaves, then you have a new team. That team, we've always felt really strongly about that, because once the dynamic has changed, that new person coming in or old person leaving, you have a new team, and it's start again. Because, as I say, in particular, if it's a change of leader, that doesn't mean everything's going to be the same. But it can also be, it can be the person who is literally answering the phones. They change the dynamic, and you almost have to start again.
And that's a good thing. I think sometimes people think that's a negative, but actually a new dynamic and bringing somebody new in brings a new perspective. So what you don't want to do is lose sight of that element. And because sometimes people just kind of go, oh, you need to fit into how we do it and how we've always done it. And you're kind of going, that's potentially an opportunity here.
Yeah. And
opportunity is the right word. I think, you could apply that to almost any kind of change, couldn't you? Like it's how you approach it. You either see it as the opportunity to change the things that aren't working, or you see it as a threat and a conflict about to happen. Yeah. And I think,
and we're back to
whichever way you see it, that's what will happen.
We're back to your AI example as well, because again, if you are open about it, then you go, well, actually, no, that can actually make a difference. That does free me up to do things. But exactly the example you gave, don't let it be the thing you love to do and actually will take away from your business. So it's
absolutely
each of these decisions, and that's the joy of being a leader, isn't it? You get to tackle these things.
Yeah, it's one of the joys. Yeah, I wouldn't put it at the top of my list. I think the top of my list would be the people that you're leading. But anyway, we're back to people again.
Well, and we're united on that, because people. It is so nice, isn't it? And the difference, and to engage with the difference, and to enjoy and bringing them together, and that's our story. We don't like division, really, do we?
No. I know it has to be about it's got to be connection, and it's got to be about inclusivity as well. Because I do think everybody brings something to a team or to a group or to any sort of dynamic. So you need to work with that. I think if you and otherwise you lose, as we said, you're losing out if we're all just kind of saying the same thing, and we're all kind of having to reflect the boss, then it's dull.
No, I totally agree with you. I say it sort of tongue in cheek quite a lot when it comes up, but like the classic example is the boardroom, isn't it? Like if your boardroom is just full of old white men, you only really need one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a bit tongue in cheek, but
no, but it's true. Like it's you do need some, but again, it depends on what you want, doesn't it? So it's all about interaction, and as I say, some people are perfectly happy with that, and Our view is we do like to shake it up a little bit as well, and sometimes you can do that by being who we are, and just we're not everyone's cup of tea. We try to be. To mix it as much as we can, but it's that some you win, some you lose, isn't it?
Yeah. We try and just be very down to earth and just meet people where as the real person. Mm-hmm. We don't try and dance around and kind of pretend to be. We know how to do the whole corporate thing if you need to, but actually, everybody's a person at the end of the day, and. We often, we even find some of our face-to-face stuff we quite like doing in our own home, because where people can relax. Because when people are relaxed, they're more open, and they'll be comfortable to be who they are. So if you can get comfortable with who you want to be in a relaxed environment, then the secret then is to try and gradually experiment to get it to a place where it's less comfortable, but you can still kind of navigate. And not lose sight of your great strengths and what you can bring to this community.
And the online has made a huge difference, because it means you can speak to people like we are now and straight down the camera, and actually that's where technology made a huge difference. The Zoom and the ability to be able to. It wasn't always about having to see. I was old school. I thought you had to be in the room, or people had to, even with networking and things. Oh no, it's never the same but it's not true. Like the online networking is just as good, but it's different.
It's a different dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, we talked about this before, and listeners are probably tired of me saying things like this. But and you mentioned agile earlier as well. Obviously, one of the primary tenets of agile working is that face to face is always better. But then, how many tech companies who operate literally and strictly according to agile are still actually in the same room together? I don't think there's many. I mean, there probably are the holdouts in every industry, but. So I wonder whether actually we've just redefined what face-to-face means.
Yes. I actually agree. I actually think that's exactly what it is. I think when we say face-to-face, if you're in a room, like it does, you get the full vision. But I think if you're kind of in what we're doing here, where it's focused and everybody's...
And he's having a cup of tea.
Yeah, but everybody...
Coffee, actually.
It's probably a bit cold now.
It is a bit, yeah, but it's okay.
But I think I think we've started getting more comfortable with the online, and we all know that that you're fully focused online, so you can still have those as close to a face-to-face experience and building those relationships. It's more the fact I think it is more difficult if there's 30 in the room. And 30 on screen, that's where it can be a little bit trickier.
Yeah, true. Although, I mean, I'd argue even then, like if you're 30 physically in a room, how many of those people are you really going to be able to listen to or give attention to in a meeting?
Yeah, that's true.
And you know yourself, Dave, when you go to some of these networking things where you literally are trying to, and how do I stand? And do they want me? I'm going to interrupt their conversation or whatever.
Yeah. Online, at the back. Yeah.
Do you know,
don't have any of those problems online, do you? Yeah, exactly. It's true.
And it's specific, and they go, you'll have two one-to-one meetings and all that. Grand, that's just as easy. But
actually, it's a good point, David. It probably the online, as you say, the 30. It probably does encourage more individual, separate meetings, pre or post, because if you didn't get to talk to such and such, you can have a quick half hour afterwards, whereas. Before you would have been trying to catch them for 5 minutes after the meeting, when there's about, the interruption. So, so you can probably plays to your strength kind of in some ways, the online. So it's just about, again, it's knowing when to use this technology to your strength, to the benefit of your time.
Yeah. And I mean, seeing the opportunity as well, because I mean, there's a literal sea between us right now. We wouldn't be having this conversation without the online technology, would we? So,
and in fact, that's one of the interesting things. As I say, we genuinely thought when we left the UK, we loved our time there, and we came back for family reasons to Ireland. But actually, we genuinely thought, well, we've made that move now, so we love to go back and visit, but probably as a business thing, you were doing it a little bit, but it was difficult, wasn't it?
Yeah, because even when I moved, all the companies I worked with in Ireland were kind of UK focused. So I used to be, and a lot of the marketing head offices were still in the UK. So I would be that little box in the middle of the board table, with the voice would just ping up every now and again. So for me, when we went into lockdown and suddenly everybody was online, I loved it, because we were all the same. We were all on the same page. Whereas before, you couldn't get over, maybe the flight had been cancelled and there'd be a workshop happening, and suddenly you'd be in the, as I say, you were the voice in the little box on the table, and then they would be going off to get a cup of coffee, and they'd forget and say, "Oh, sorry, forgot, Rachel. Yeah. We're having a 15-minute break here. We'll give it, come back in 15 minutes." Whereas you could see it all online, and so it was, you were suddenly, you felt you were part of in the group a little bit more. So we have moved on. So from that point of view, that's as you say, the distance has worked a lot better. I know they'd still like to have the face to face, but at least there's less, and even actually if they do face to face, there's more of the phone ins and stuff like that where you're on the big screen. But that's still not ideal. I find that I do struggle with that, where some people are face to face and some people are on screen. To me, that doesn't work. So it's because if somebody's talking on screen, everybody has to stop talking in the room for them. So it just doesn't. Well, that's from my experience. So it's all or nothing to actually get the benefit fully.
Yeah, I mean, again, it depends on your technology, doesn't it? What you've invested in and whether you've got a nice projector and a decent speaker, and which most businesses, even today, probably still don't.
But the reality is, you have to. You do what you do, because you have to get on with it. And as I said, it's fast pacing. We're very global orientated, very internationally. So you kind of have to, between time changes and things like that, you just have to make it work for the best. And last thing you want to do is have people flying around the world on polluting the air as much as possible.
Oh, well, quite.
That's another conversation.
Absolutely. No, I absolutely no. I mean, I agree with you on all of those reasons. And it was the same for me. I mean, I started the business only about 6 months before COVID first hit. So for me, not having much income or revenue at the time and suddenly not feeling like I had to go and travel and spend money on this and that and the other, I could just log into Zoom. I mean, that was, it was amazing. I loved it as well.
You were still in the aviation at that stage as well, so...
No, I wasn't. Well, not after I'd started the company. But,
right. But were you not looking at that sector as well, no?
A little bit, yeah. I hadn't really decided at that point what I wanted to do, if I'm honest. It was, all a bit hectic. But
isn't that the joy of the podcast now? Because you can get to dip your toe in everything, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it started out almost as a hobby, keep myself sane during one of those lockdowns. And then, no, it's, if I'm honest, it's what I spend most of my time on because I love it. So.
Right. How many episodes have you done, David?
How many episodes? So this week, as we're recording this, in the last week of October, was 136.
Wow.
By the time this one actually comes out, it's going to be 145.
Wow. That's brilliant.
Yeah. So this will be actually the last episode before Christmas, pretty much.
Oh, wow. So we're getting the Christmas episode.
Yeah. Well, you're welcome to come back for the special as well, obviously. But, yeah.
We'll be like the Welcome and Wise Christmas show.
Pretty much, yeah, but in a good way.
A long extended version, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I always try and do a bit extra around the Christmas period, and then it kind of ends the show for the year, and everyone gets a present. That's how I like to think of it, anyway. Not sure if everyone agrees, but
no. I think it is, and but the key is, and that's where we come from with people now as well, looking at year end and then moving into, because again, people forget that actually you have to have different angles to be able to come from. So Christmas is always a good angle. New Year is always a good angle. And actually people now, if they haven't started thinking about what they're doing for 2025, well, why haven't you? It's nuts. Because I daren't say how many shopping days to Christmas. I don't know. So,
I don't either. It's not many.
He goes Christmas Eve. I don't even know why he's asking. He's a Christmas Eve person, so
why? You've heard of Amazon, right? Like,
no, he loves the experience of walking down and kind of just walking by. He likes that.
In the old days, it would be a good way to put yourself, because I do believe in making decisions as well. And you go, I like that one, that one, and that.
Fair. Oh, this is an interesting question. You may both have different answers for this. Let's see. What will be your best and your worst experiences of leadership?
My best has definitely been around, and I probably will reflect on the sort of person that I admire, is somebody who is true to themselves. So I had a really good leader early on in my career who was very empowering, and the reason they were empowering was because they just came in and they took over a division, and they kind of communicated well. They were themselves. They had the right empathy. They were no nonsense, clear in their messaging. They were, and they just trusted you to get on with it. And they had that open door policy. And I talk open door because it was that sort of, even it was that kind of structure. And they just kind of give you the confidence that you could get on, and you were the expert, so they didn't step on your toes, and then I suppose the worst was definitely that sort of the other one, which was the opposite, which is that do as I say, and almost giving you objectives and deadlines that were impossible to achieve, so you were always going to fail. And you couldn't challenge up because, so the reasoning for that was that they didn't trust you enough, that they thought if they give you a realistic deadline, you would take your eye off the ball. It was that sort of reverse psychology on, oh no, I'm going to push you and push you and push you, so that even though you kind of go, well, actually that's impossible because even best in the world, there's certain steps we have to go through, so we ain't going to achieve it. So so morale was kind of, and it created that sort of toxic environment. So yeah, for me, it was the two. So thankfully, I've experienced both, so I can see what a really good, and for most of my career, I've actually had, as I said to you earlier, I could see a lot of the people I've had the pleasure working with have had, areas that there's been enough of the good to make it, know that they're pointing and meaning well. Yet there were moments where, particularly under pressure, where that might fall down. And look, we're all human, but
and I think the best leaders we kind of experienced were always the ones that had your back as well, and you knew were there for you, and you actually enjoyed working with them, and they valued your opinion, and they didn't have to be your best mate, because they sometimes had to make decisions that weren't the easiest, but at least they told you, and they spoke to you. Rachel actually met my worst boss. She didn't believe when I used to be coming home she didn't believe how bad he was, but to the fact that she actually met him at a wedding, and we'd been. But he was so old school. He didn't see women. He wouldn't see women that came into business. He would only see blokes, and he would only see people who wore a full suit. He wouldn't see someone who came in without a tie. He wouldn't see someone who wore a jacket because he said it was unprofessional. And I was going through the stage where we were literally hiring people who were the best people for the job, male, female, and an awful lot of them happened to be they weren't your white English. They tended it didn't matter who they were. We were employing the best, and he used to have an opinion. And Rachel met him, and she heard his views at the wedding, and he couldn't disguise, because we used to have meetings, and he would point to people and he said, "I can't believe I employed you. I don't," it was that, it was. But you got chatting to him at the wedding, and he said, she said, "So, why are you like that?" And he said, "Well," he said, "if you look, some of the people who've done best with me have actually not been like me." He said, but that was his justification, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's it. Sometimes it's when you kind of get the opportunity to kind of understand why they took that approach. It was logical for them. It just wasn't. You just didn't necessarily want to be on the other side. They didn't really, it's like that sort of different styles of coaching in sport. Some people believe that kind of being almost like pushing. That works for some people, but not for everybody. And I think maybe that's the difference now. Leadership is shifting, thankfully, to recognizing that you can't just have one approach that's going to work for everybody. And it might work. That might be what motivated you to get on, but that doesn't motivate, probably 80% of the room that you're, or of your leadership. Another interesting one I had was one time somebody, really senior, CEO, kind of 3 or 4 kind of divisions above where our company was, came over to be, to meet the ordinary staff member and to be relatable. And it was all going great. And they were doing the town hall and it was all brilliant until he started to talk about his, the pressures that he had as well. And it bombed so badly because his pressures were about, finding a house for his daughter in Pimlico or Chelsea or something like that, where, that was a real challenge. And it fell. And there was a lot of and people were kind of going, what's he on about? Like he was probably talking about £1 million apartments, and most people in the room were probably lucky if they could afford 100 or 200, so that was for me, that was a great, I would find that fascinating that somebody just had done such a good job and had done all the right things, had gone around and chatted to everybody, and then just got it so badly wrong. And that was the bit that sat with everybody afterwards. So it was, so again, we all live and learn, but so sometimes the greatest learning is watching somebody else how not to do it.
And it's another thing to remember, you're only as good as your next, because you can get everything right and then you make one bad decision. It's how you come out of it. But also just remember, you have your best work ahead of you. We do believe in that. But you do need to keep your eye on the ball and realize that actually, if you get it wrong, sometimes people like if you hold your hand up and at least be relatable, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is difficult, isn't it? I mean, the self-awareness bit and being relatable, and I don't know, but then everyone does make mistakes. Everyone does put a foot wrong sometimes.
Yes, exactly.
Are there things like that you just never will come back from? Like sitting in a room of people on minimum wage talking about your latest car that you've just bought in your collection of 20. I feel like that's something you probably can't come back from, but I don't know. I don't want to believe that necessarily. So, I'm torn.
I'm sure he didn't lose any sleep because all he kind of thought, well, I've got that one done. I'm moving on to the next one.
Yeah,
and
I didn't even realise. Yeah,
I'm hoping that maybe he won't have followed. He would have come up with some other story after that. That somebody would have given them the feedback to kind of go, maybe don't try that one again.
One of the big mistakes that used to happen in Ireland, where you get people coming over from the UK, and you definitely experienced this, is when they'd say the mainland. When they would literally come to Dublin and they'd be saying over on the mainland, and they wouldn't recognise that Ireland was a different jurisdiction and they wouldn't have done their homework. And you just feel the room. And you would have it sometimes with London as well, where they'd be so focused on things in and around London, and they'd forget that there's other parts of the UK like Scotland, Wales, the North, and you kind of go, well, do you know what? Leave them to it.
Yeah, I sometimes wonder if things like that speak more to our education system than anything else, because I don't know that that's necessarily taught that well at school. Like the differences, especially in England, where, anyway, going into politics again.
Well, we used to have it in America when we went there. People would ask how you got to Dublin from
New York.
From New York.
Did you get the bus?
Did you get the Greyhound? And you'd be going, Dublin.
Yeah, it took me about 6 months, but it was worth it. Yeah. Oh, you got to love them though, haven't you? If you could each go back in time and do one thing differently in your careers, what thing would that be?
Do you want me to go first? Look, my one would be, when we went to the UK, I enjoyed my job and I loved it, and I really, really, really did enjoy it. And I don't, people will say, "Oh, well, going back and that," but what I do wish I had done earlier was actually do a bit like what you said about what you did. Actually build something on, actually go back to college and keep my further education going. Rachel was a better beast than I, from the point of view that when she did marketing, she got qualified, and whereas I was so busy doing the I always loved reading, and I always loved autobiographies and things. So it wasn't that I wasn't but all the times I spent watching television or watching things that weren't
developing
me, and a bit like
sport. You loved your sport.
I love my sport, and I love going to sport, and I bring customers to sport. So that was fine. But times it's a bit like saying eating chewing gum. There is no benefit to eating chewing gum, is there really? Other than sometimes it can help you with stress or things. But if I had put my time into reading some of the books that I love doing now, and I'd always done, like I did philosophy by choice in college. I loved it. And so one of the benefits of working for myself was the fact that I thought about what do I love. And so that was kind of how we've built the business. And the same for Rachel. But she was better at it than me from the point of view that you kept up your education, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I suppose that's just the nature of who I am. I kind of like to go back and do bits and pieces and qualifications and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
so if I had my chance again and I was going back in time, I'd say to myself, don't be watching all those different programs. Do a course, do this. And I even saw it with some of my colleagues. They were smart guys, and they went and they got themselves qualified with masters and all the different things. And I,
Well, you also had your company they were actually very forward looking. You did a lot of development within the company.
Oh, I did, but they were training courses. What I'm saying is the actual development of myself that I would actually choose to do for myself, which I do now. And, if I'm reading a book, that's,
it's all development.
It's all development, but it's getting back to what I love. So, and those hours watching television or whatever, as I say, it's the feeling of chewing gum, and so I'm not regretting them because there was enjoyment, but if I had my chance again, that's what I'd do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's never too late.
Well, I'm still doing it. So there'll be different books and I'm doing it. And we don't, television is literally rationed as much now, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, TV is the new reading, isn't it? That's what I keep being told. Maybe not.
Well, we come across clients now who again are using AI, and they ask you for books to recommend, and so the AI reads the book on their behalf, and then they get they get the summary. They get the summary.
See, that I think is a misuse of AI. I think if you don't read the whole book, you're missing a lot of the experience, definitely, but probably the learning as well. You can't just condense a whole book to a one-page summary and then take away the same information as if you read the whole thing.
They actually don't read it because they get it verbalized as well, so they don't actually have to.
Well, now see, as a podcaster, I'm never going to say that's a bad idea. Like I'm all about the audio books.
Opening up that for discussion, so you don't actually have the pleasure of having to read the book or go through it, and that's why I never totally got Kindle, because I thought to myself, part of a book is actually the turning of the page and reading it and the excitement.
Yeah, and like the smell and the weight in your hand. Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm definitely with you.
So I have loved the last few years getting back doing that. I just wish, but I kind of felt it was because I was rushing in the UK all the time, and the time where you'd be actually eating meals as you're driving. That again, I don't recommend it, but
don't think you're allowed to do that in the UK anymore. I'm pretty sure that's
probably not.
But where you literally go in and you fill up with petrol and you go, that's
you were on the go, and also Ailish was little as well. So when you were at home, there were other things to do, and I probably was doing my qualification. So both of us, it was hard for both of us to be doing it at the same time.
But you were great at it, and you loved it. And even before we had it, you qualified.
Well, I kind of had to, because I knew nothing about marketing, so I kind of felt I needed to kind of understand what it was all about. But I think for me, I probably, if I think back, there were occasions where I did work probably longer than I should have in a toxic environment, and probably I did it thinking, I'm going to be able to work. This is all good learning, because I'd be very much into that, kind of, this is good for you. This is, this is about, resilience. This is about kind of, working around it. I'm sure there's a way of making this a bit more manageable. There were probably 2 periods in my life where I probably should have jumped sooner than I did. But then part of me kind of feels, because I didn't, it's probably it's helping me now in what I'm doing now to support other people to take that leap of faith because it does, that sort of environment isn't probably,
well, I suppose,
healthy for you. It can kind of knock your confidence, or
it has helped you when you've been speaking to people and say,
yeah,
not that I know what you're feeling, but you did.
But you can kind of at least support the person, and you can understand why there's a reluctance to move, or why there, as we talked about, this kind of lack of motivation or confidence is a little bit knocked, or so we kind of have a better appreciation of that. So you look back and go, yeah, you could have changed that, but actually, because I didn't, in some ways probably has helped to shape what we do now as well.
What percentage of people, David, do you get who answer that question or don't answer it?
I've never had anyone not answer it. The usual answer is, oh, well, I could this, I could that, but actually I'm happy with where I've ended up. So no, I wouldn't change anything. Which, to be fair, is probably my answer as well.
Yeah.
Not to say there aren't a few decisions that we all probably regret and wish we hadn't done, but you can't possibly know at the time what impact or what value that might have to you in the future. I think is the difficulty of the question, isn't it?
It is. That's exactly.
And isn't the joy of it, David, the fact that you can actually say you played things as they were, and you actually made the most of it. And
I mean, I can certainly empathise with both of your answers, actually. Because I'm growing up, I loved books, but I was rarely seen without a book on a shelf or in my hand next to where I was sitting. And I lost that, I think, when I started working, because for the same reasons as you, like I was on the go quite a lot. It was before COVID and all of that, and remote work it was a joke, frankly, let alone a thing that people did. And so, I had a 60-mile-a-day commute each way, and there was no time. By the time you get home after that as well, holding a book, no, you're not going to do that. If you do, it'll hit you in the face when you fall asleep. So I was exactly the same. And actually, that's one of the best things about stepping away from that and starting my own business, becoming the solopreneur. You can't see it because they're on the floor behind me, but I've got a stack of books knee high that I'm always working through now.
What's the best book you recommend at the moment?
It's a leadership book, obviously, but This is Day One. In fact, hang on, I can hold it up. Here we go. Nice plug for a former podcast guest as well.
Okay.
This is Day One, Leadership That Matters by Drew Dudley.
Drew Dudley?
So Drew is a leadership speaker. He spent some time, in fact, you can listen to the episode and hear all about his life. But his whole approach to leadership, which he's taken from his struggles with alcoholism and all the work he's done on leadership as well over the years, about basically every day you reset. This is the first day of my leadership. I'm going to treat it as such and move forward from there.
So is it kind of like a 12-step program?
I mean, sort of, not quite. It's not quite that literal, but his whole thing originally was about everyday leadership. So he had this thing back in, I think it was 2010, 11, where he did a TED talk and it just blew up. I think it's up at like 5 or 7 million views now.
Wow.
And it was only like 7 minutes, but it was basically about those small everyday moments that anyone can do that have an impact in people's lives, that demonstrate that sort of leadership every single day without needing the job title or the paycheck or the grand ideas, but that is just as an important application of leadership as all of those grand titles and ideas. You can tell probably that I really love his approach to leadership.
Yes, but to be fair to him, I finished a book. I don't know if I said it, Live Life in Crescendo.
Oh, okay.
Now that's Stephen Covey, but he died while writing it, and his daughter finished the book, and he's very much of this, that you live your life towards something, and so each time you're heading towards a period, and so we're a little bit older than you, so we're actually coming to our fruition now from the point of view that it's a case of actually all our experiences and all our life have come to this moment, and so you build it, and it's not about saying, oh God, now I'm 30, I'm 40, I'm 50. No, I'm going to be 60. I'm going to, and I'm going to put it all into good use. And actually, when it does come to retire, you're not really retiring. You're actually, which is what a lot of cultures do, tend to treat people. The older you get, you're seen as wiser, and actually you have a bit more to offer, instead of feeling like
you're on the shelf.
So
yeah, I mean, I can see both sides of that, to be honest, because I don't think age automatically equals wisdom.
No, that's true. No, in fact, people get worse.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, some people do, definitely. Definitely not us, though. Yeah.
No, and that's exactly it. And so that was kind of the one that focused.
That's your latest focus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, lovely. And then, Rachel, obviously, from our previous conversation, I definitely empathise with your choice there as well. Yeah, I mean, even today, I'm still on the fence, though, between should I have left earlier, or am I glad I stayed because of how much I learned from that experience?
It's funny, when we were talking that time, it actually brought back a lot of that as well. It's funny, it doesn't go away, the whole emotions and stuff, and you're right, it is. Yeah, you're stronger for it, but and wiser. But would you? Yeah, only you know if you'd do it again. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I don't know if I can answer that. I think the further in the past it gets, the easier it is to answer that question.
Well, but the other thing you have is it's still an anecdote.
True. Yeah. That's true.
But also it is. The facts are, probably if you met yourself, going back to one of your earlier questions, if you've met yourself and said, would you be able to do that? And in your case, Rachel, as well, and come through that, and you go, well, I don't know, but you did.
Yeah.
So we sometimes underestimate what we can achieve, don't we?
Definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Not just sometimes, I think. I've only got one question left. It's the leadership heroes moment.
Leadership heroes.
So you can have one each. Normally it's one, but there's two of you. So if you could pick a person, it could be anyone you like, so alive or dead, past or present, real or even fictitious, who in your opinion would perfectly embody leadership, who would that person be and why?
Well, I went first last time. You can. Yeah,
I'm guessing this person's probably discussed quite regularly because I think they shone so brightly during COVID. For me, and as I've always said, sometimes you really see leadership quality during a crisis situation. So Jacinda Ardern for me was just shone highly. I felt we had really good leadership in Ireland, kind of with the similar sort of style. And it was all around the empathy and the genuine authenticness, the element of humour. There was she kind of carried herself with humour, the agility of getting on with it, and just being very human, and even sort of that introducing the fact that she was a mother and the multitasking of all of that. To me, she had all those. She was so right for the time, and even I even admired her at the end where she decided, no, I'm ready to move on.
And she walked,
and without any nonsense. You know what I mean? It wasn't a big, wanted to all, she was very much about, I was here to do a job. I did it really well. I did it to my best, and and she recognised that it wasn't about. It was. She used the we, and it was about all of us in it together, which I think was so crucial during that time. So, and I think she was an example of how the sort of leaderships we need now, and how the contrast to what we talked about earlier, the kind of the boss, like, do as I say sort of thing. So yeah, I'm sure she's very popular on your, but to me, she did stand out because she does have all those qualities, and she probably reflected the sort of leader I really enjoyed working under as well when I had that privilege.
Yeah. I'm just come up a few times. Nowhere near the most common choice, though. Which is a shame, because I think in terms of modern political leadership, certainly she's probably the best one. And I think, a lot of people would look, if we're talking about political leaders exclusively, I think a lot of people would look at her example and almost say she's an anti-leader, because by that sort of political ilk. But in my book, I think it's the opposite is true. She was the only real true leader of the well-known ones.
I love that, because I thought she was very inclusive, and she almost sort of showed that, what I would call just a real person could be, you don't have to, it comes back to this thing. You can just be yourself with a good, strong quality. Like, that's nothing to say that she wasn't strong. She didn't get the things done, because, my God, did she make it happen? Did it all work? But she brought people with her, which is really the best way of doing things.
She kind of took the mantle from Angela Merkel, didn't she?
Yeah, but Angela she was good in her own way as well. But Jacinda was just, I don't know, that was a moment that I thought, like, I couldn't tell you, this is the reality. I don't know who the New Zealand Prime Minister is now. I know.
I don't either. That's bad, isn't it? Oh, well.
So that's why, for me, she jumped out. Yeah. So
no, definitely. So I agree with you, and I quite like her as well for two reasons. One, it's kind of that. The social media cliche of it is there's that old saying, isn't there, about managers do things right and leaders do the right things. And I think she was like the textbook example of that. She did the thing because it was the right thing to do for the humans that she was leading.
Yeah.
And I think that is so important, so rare in political leadership as well, which has just become this self-obsessed sort of cult of personality these days, hasn't it?
Well, it's almost become a bit of abuse as well.
She showed her human side, because obviously she had, the COVID, but she had a lot of other things going on then as well, like where she had to, get the people and just, understood what people were going through. I just think that's so important.
She didn't do it for gain either, because I don't think she I don't think she won easily or anything like that. Like, it wasn't like that people didn't stand up to her or anything. Like, she went and she just wasn't afraid to make a decision either, was she?
Yeah, she made quick decisions.
Yeah, that's it.
Explained why she was making them. Made them, as you said, for the right reason, and on we go. And that purposeful leadership is very empowering in a lot of ways for people.
Definitely, and the vulnerability aspects, we said authenticity earlier as well. I think, and this all applies as well to the way she stepped down too. The speech. I think, what was the phrasing? It was something like, "I just don't have enough left in the tank" or something to do this job justice. So I'm going to step down and let someone else who's better able to do it. Again, how rare is that in national politics?
It's great, because it shows it's even the fact that she recognised that it was a role and a job she was doing, and you needed to be at your A game, and as soon as you're not, you step aside. No, so I had a lot to admire about
till they wait for one election too many, isn't it? And then you go, oh God.
Or the ego takes over. Sometimes the ego takes over, and that's when then mistakes start to happen. So for me, she is somebody who I admire.
Well, it's a good choice. Thank you. Ciaran, your turn.
My one is not to. It's because a lot of people will say Nelson Mandela or different things, and I love the fact that U2 were brilliant for us as well in Ireland, because they were our first. We'd had the Boomtown Rats and Thin Lizzy before, but they were. U2 just set us on a different planet, and they're not popular at the moment in some ways because they're seen as the elite now, so it's a different kind of thing. But when I was thinking about people who you would just admire and who you just want to have a conversation with, it was Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah, that book.
And have you read it?
I haven't. I'm going to add it to my list now.
Yeah, what I'm saying is it's written from the Holocaust, and it's not a name. So the people that are coming from the Nelson Mandela thing, again, turn the other cheek or whatever. But this is the ultimate version of this from the point of view. He went through the most horrendous situation, World War II, and he just stood up for himself as a leader within the camp, and actually didn't say no. Really, wasn't it? It was, and literally made the most of himself. And this book is really it's his message to the world, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose, because I think his big thing is the fact that what got him through the I think it was 3 years he was in Auschwitz and stuff, was that no matter what's going on around you, it's what's going on in your head that actually helps you to survive, and you can create a purpose. And and actually he kind of, it was all about what's your purpose for getting up in the morning, and even if it was to survive another day or to survive another beating, and it was all about. So from a leadership point of view, he kind of captures that purpose, and he also brings it back to the importance of what purpose is about, isn't it? It was about the fact that there's three elements. You have to you have to be doing something. You have to have relationships, and you have to, again, I think, stimulate your own mindset and things like that. So you kind of emulated a lot of what you kind of liked about that, and to you, it's, if you can live half the man that he is. But
it's also that he doesn't pretend to be anything other than what he is. He's just a normal person. He had education. It wasn't that he just wasn't going to be beaten by circumstance. He was just going to stand up for himself.
I think he also talked about choice as well. Like, we all have a choice. You have a choice to be, good, or choice to he said there were less saints in the camp than there were, people who were out for themselves, which is, so again, he kind of brought it back to, sorry, you can tell I've because thanks to Ciaran, I've read this fairly recently as well. So, it's it's got us thinking. So that's probably why.
And you see this again. People assume I've got this brilliant new idea, like it's fantastic, it's this and it's that. And the Stoic philosophers and those, they were doing it centuries ago, millennia ago. All these brand new ideas, they all come from human thought and great civilizations, and it really is about people, isn't it? About what you can do, and no matter how bad things are. So it's not to be downbeat; it's to be the opposite. It's to say, actually, no matter what the circumstances, you can still overcome. And you'll hear the stories about Vietnam or World War II, or stuff that's going on in the Ukraine now, or different things. But it is so much better if you can unite, and if you can build people, and people actually realize just how great they are. And so our little tribute to him is the fact that his book is still being read now, and it'll still be a bestseller, because what he's talking about is the emphasis on it does show the inhumanity as well, but it does show the human spirit and the human ability at its best. So that's and to me, the great leaders will always be people who are that, and it doesn't matter what circumstance. It's making the most of what they can and what they are willing to do, and sometimes circumstance puts you in it, and that they're probably the best stories, aren't they?
They are, but I think, thinking back to what we were talking about earlier with And there's a famous quote, and I cannot for the life of me remember who said it, so apologies to whoever it is, but the one about, anyone can lead when things are easy, but true leadership only emerges, when times are tough, when things are difficult. And in fact, Nelson Mandela said something to that effect as well about the nature of, it wasn't that quote, but he said something similar about people don't necessarily thank a leader who takes all the credit or is there when things are easy. But when they really appreciate leadership is when there's danger and the leader puts himself between them and the danger. Paraphrasing horribly, and it's these kind of things, isn't it? Is when things are difficult. That's often when we learn the most about leadership, about humanity, about ourselves, and so on.
They don't take the easy choice, do they?
Well, sometimes it's not their choice, I guess.
No. But I suppose the key to it is that they actually make the most of it, and isn't it? That's what life is about. It is so much nicer where you can actually feel you did your best, and that's all we can really hope to do, isn't it?
100%. Well, we've passed the 2-hour mark, so this is a good episode. I mean, about an hour per person per guest. That feels about right. So it's all good. I mean, the only thing left for me to say really is, firstly, if anyone listening would like to learn more about you both, about your business, perhaps reach out if they're looking for some help, and you might be able to help them. I'm sure you will. Where's the best place to do that? Where can they go?
They can find us on our website, which is woodhazel.ie, or we're both on LinkedIn as well. So would love to connect and start a conversation.
Lovely.
And the website is the best place to start, isn't it? Because that's kind of our little selling point. LinkedIn, as I say, we won't get into the AI, will we?
We've covered that. I'm sure. Okay, well, I'll pop all of those links anyway in the episode description, the show notes, so everyone can find that easily. And the only thing left for me to say then is thank you so much for your time today for this lovely conversation. I've really enjoyed myself. I hope you both have as well.
We have.
And I'm sure all the listeners will as well. All the viewers. Yeah.
Thank you, David. That was great.
It was excellent. Good. And it's just nice having a gentle chat as well, isn't it? Just where
isn't it?
And it flows along. And hopefully you won't cut it.
Yeah, I won't cut it too much. I may cut a couple of the aeroplane noises because I'm on the Gatwick flight path.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. Lovely. Thank you again so much, Rachel and Ciaran, for your time recording this episode. We did record it all in one go, so it was over 2 hours for us, but it didn't feel like it. And I think that's always the mark of a really great podcast episode, or at least from my very biased perspective. It's the ones that I enjoy the most, where time flies and I don't realise how long I've spent having this conversation with the guest or guests in this case. So thank you again so much. Really enjoyed that conversation. I learned loads as well. I'm sure all of you did as well, listeners and viewers. And a reminder again, do check the show notes, that episode description, for the links to Woodhazel Consulting, Ciaran and Rachel's website. Go and learn more about them. Reach out if you'd like help with any of the things they've talked about on the show today or yesterday. I know they would love to hear from you, and you will absolutely benefit from a conversation with them too. That's all from me for this week. Do come back and join us on Monday, the 23rd next week, for the annual Leading with Integrity Christmas special. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's semi-serious. We talk about leadership a little bit. There's a bit of a Christmas theme, obviously. And the intention is to bring together the magic of Christmas and the inspiration of leadership. You be the judge as to how well we achieve that with my various guests on Monday. So until then, thanks again for listening. I'll talk to you again soon. And be a leader, not a boss.